The instant you rush to explain yourself, the power quietly leaves your hands. Think about it, someone questions you, doubts you, subtly challenges your value. Your heart speeds up. Your mind panics. Words spill out fast, desperate, heavy with justification. You believe clarity will save you. It won't. What people read is not your logic, it's your urgency. The one who explains first silently admits weakness. Power doesn't belong to the most correct person in the room. It belongs to the one who controls the emotional frame. The moment you defend, you step into their reality, their rules, their court. But what if you refuse to play? What if silence became your first move instead of your last mistake? Most people live on invisible strings, pulled by reactions they don't control. A raised eyebrow makes them apologize. An accusation forces a speech. A misunderstanding sends them scrambling for proof. This constant self-defense drains the soul. It's exhausting to live as if the world is always judging you. But there is another posture, one so grounded, so internally anchored, that attacks collapse before they land. This isn't arrogance or emotional coldness. It's sovereignty. It's deciding that your worth does not require approval. When you stop sourcing reality from other people's opinions, insults lose their oxygen. They don't bounce off you, they evaporate. And once you taste that calm dominance, you'll never want to return to emotional slavery again. Your instinct to explain didn't come from nowhere, it was trained into you early. As a child, explanation was survival. Authority accused, and justification was your shield. You learned that being good meant convincing someone else of your innocence. The problem is, adulthood arrived, but that wiring never left. Now you unconsciously assign authority to bosses, partners, strangers, even enemies. Each time you defend yourself, you replay the same old script, please believe me so I can feel safe. And people sense it instantly. Submission has a scent. Those who seek control recognize it without effort. The world doesn't reward those who plead to be understood, it respects those who don't need permission to stand firm. Respect and understanding are not the same currency. When you hurry to clarify, you choose understanding over authority. You want them to get you. But power figures don't explain themselves to be accepted. They state, pause, and move on. The longer you talk, the more you reveal what hurts you, what matters too much, where you're unstable. Once someone knows that, they own leverage. The mistake is believing facts will save you. Most accusations aren't about truth, they're tests. Tests to see if you'll flinch. And when you do, the test is passed, by them. The real shift happens when you realize there is no courtroom, only perception. And perception bends to stillness. Here's the truth most people miss, attacks are rarely about accuracy. They're about dominance. Someone throws a comment, a label, a sharp remark, not to learn, but to provoke movement. If you react, they win. The moment you stop treating accusations as verdicts, they lose meaning. Words turn into noise. Opinions shrink to background static. When you stop explaining, something strange happens, the pressure flips. The attacker now carries the discomfort alone. And discomfort is unbearable when it isn't shared. This is where silence stops being passive and starts becoming aggressive. Not loud aggression. Controlled aggression. The kind that unsettles people because they don't know how to fight it. Imagine the moment someone accuses you, and you say nothing. No denial. No defense. Just steady eye contact and calm breathing. That pause creates a vacuum. Human brains hate unresolved tension. In that silence, they begin to doubt themselves. They talk more. They soften. They backtrack. Your stillness forces them to confront their own behavior. You didn't challenge them, yet they feel challenged. That's the power of non-reaction. You become unreadable. Unmovable. Attacks require resistance to work. When there's none, they collapse under their own weight. This is why mist can't be punched and water can't be stabbed. Become the space attacks pass through, and leave weakened. Silence protects something critical, your inner map. When you defend, you expose your values and insecurities. Say, "I'm not stupid," and intelligence becomes your weak spot. Say, "I'm not a bad person," and morality becomes leverage. Silence reveals nothing. It denies the attacker information. They're left guessing, projecting, spiraling. This makes them uneasy. People fear what they can't read. Calm, neutral presence feels like judgment, even when no judgment exists. That discomfort often forces retreat. The strongest person in any interaction isn't the loudest or quickest, it's the one who cannot be deciphered. And once you learn to protect that mystery, every conversation shifts in your favor. Sometimes, silence alone isn't enough, you need words, but never defensive ones. Instead of pushing back, you pull the energy forward. Agree, then exaggerate. Turn the attack into absurdity. When someone calls you greedy, don't justify. Amplify it humorously. Flat tone. Minimal emotion. You signal immunity. The insult dissolves because it no longer wounds. You've reframed the situation without resistance. This creates cognitive confusion. They wanted pain. They got playfulness. They wanted dominance. They got detachment. This isn't comedy, it's control. When you treat an attack lightly, you announce that it lacks authority. And nothing disarms hostility faster than realizing it failed to land. This state is called amused mastery. It's the posture of someone who feels safe enough to smile during chaos. Think of an adult watching a child throw a tantrum. There's no rage, only calm awareness. When you defend yourself, you drop to the floor and scream back. When you stay amused, you stay standing. High status never chases validation. It observes. It chooses when, and if, to respond. Mockery without malice, agreement without shame, silence without fear, these are signals of internal completeness. People are magnetized to that energy because it's rare. And rare things command attention without effort. Labels are another trap people use to control you. You're arrogant. You're selfish. You don't care. These are cages disguised as descriptions. If you fight the label, you still accept its authority. If you mock it lightly, it dissolves. You refuse the identity without resisting it. This shows you don't depend on external definitions to know who you are. Only insecure people argue with labels. Secure people laugh and move on. When you stop defending your identity, something powerful happens, you become fluid. Untouchable. People can't pin you down, and what can't be pinned can't be controlled. That freedom unsettles those who rely on dominance games. Every confrontation hides an invisible structure. One person asks questions. The other answers. The questioner holds power. The responder loses it. When you explain yourself, you accept the role of defendant. The shift happens when you refuse that role entirely. Instead of answering, you redirect. Instead of defending actions, you observe behavior. Questions aimed at you suddenly reflect back at them. The spotlight moves. Control changes hands. You're no longer just participating, you're framing. And framing determines reality. This tactic infuriates manipulators because it removes their advantage. They wanted submission. They got analysis. And nothing destabilizes aggression faster than being calmly observed. Short phrases become shields when used correctly. I find that interesting. Why does that matter to you? That's one way to see it. These statements acknowledge sound without accepting meaning. You don't absorb their emotion. You return it. This creates boundaries without confrontation. It signals, this belongs to you, not me. You stop carrying other people's feelings like unpaid baggage. Their anger, disappointment, or frustration becomes their responsibility again. And when you stop managing emotions that aren't yours, your energy returns. Calm replaces tension. Control replaces chaos. This isn't rudeness, it's clarity. And clarity terrifies people who rely on emotional pressure to feel powerful. Here's the paradox: sometimes the strongest move is agreement. Not submissive agreement, neutral agreement. Calmly acknowledging truth without accepting shame. When someone lists your flaws, say, "You're right," and stop. No explanation. No apology spiral. The attack loses momentum. They expected resistance. They got openness. It's like pushing a door that suddenly swings open, you stumble. Agreement removes friction, and without friction, anger has nowhere to grip. But here's the key: agree with facts, not identities. Admit mistakes without adopting labels. Actions can be corrected. Identities don't need defending. That distinction separates confidence from weakness. Owning mistakes without emotion signals deep security. Insecure people fight desperately to appear flawless. Secure people say, "I'll fix it," and move on. When you do this, attackers look unreasonable for continuing. The balance shifts. You appear grounded. They appear unstable. Over time, people trust and respect those who don't protect fragile egos. History remembers the composed, not the reactive. When you remove emotional charge from criticism, you take away its fuel. And once someone realizes they can't provoke you, they often stop trying. Power games only work when both players agree to play. None of this works if it's just performance. Words are only a fraction of communication. Tone, stillness, posture, these carry the real message. If you say the right lines with shaking energy, people feel the fear underneath. True power comes from internal alignment. That means facing the parts of yourself you avoid. Attacks hurt only when they touch something unhealed. Insults bounce off those who already know their flaws. Self-knowledge removes defensiveness. When nothing inside you needs hiding, nothing outside can threaten you. This is where silence stops being technique and becomes identity. Ask yourself why certain words sting more than others. If someone insults something you don't believe about yourself, you laugh. If it hurts, it's because part of you fears it's true. That's the work. Own your shadow. Accept your capacity for failure, selfishness, mistakes, contradiction. When someone points at it, you nod, not in shame, but in awareness. Shame requires denial. Awareness dissolves it. People cannot weaponize what you've already integrated. Once you stop pretending to be perfect, attacks lose their teeth. You don't need to defend transparency. Light passes through it. This is what it means to become untouchable. Not invincible. Integrated. You stop building walls and become open terrain. Arrows pass through because there's nothing solid to hit. You don't argue with storms. You move like weather. Calm. Present. Unreactive. And paradoxically, this softness becomes strength. People sense when someone cannot be manipulated. They either adjust their behavior, or disappear. Both outcomes are wins. When your center no longer depends on approval, power returns naturally. Quietly. Effortlessly. Now comes the real test, application. For the next 7 days, refuse to explain yourself. Be late. State it. No excuse. Make a mistake. Acknowledge it. No story. Be misunderstood. Let it stand. Feel the urge to fix perception rise, and don't act on it. Sit with the discomfort. Let it burn out. You'll notice something fascinating: the world doesn't collapse. People adjust. Some push harder. Others retreat. But you remain centered. That's the point. You're training nervous system dominance, not verbal cleverness. And dominance starts inside. Watch what happens to people around you. Confusion comes first. Then curiosity. Then respect. Humans are drawn to certainty. And nothing signals certainty like someone who doesn't need to justify their existence. Your presence grows heavier. Your words carry more weight because there are fewer of them. You reclaim energy you didn't realize you were leaking. This isn't about winning arguments, it's about exiting them entirely. When you stop reacting, the game ends. And the one who ends the game controls the room. The world will try to pull you back into reaction. It feeds on explanations, emotions, drama. Don't feed it. Keep your mystery intact. Mystery creates gravity. Gravity creates authority. You don't need to announce strength, people feel it. Silence becomes your signature. Not cold silence. Grounded silence. The kind that says, I know who I am, and I don't need consensus. Once you embody that, interactions become simpler. Cleaner. Lighter. You choose when to engage, and that choice alone places you above most conflicts. This philosophy isn't for everyone. It demands emotional discipline. It requires killing the need to be understood. That part of you has been fed since childhood. Letting it die feels uncomfortable at first, like losing a familiar identity. But what replaces it is freedom. Freedom from explanation. Freedom from validation. Freedom from emotional puppetry. When you stop performing for approval, you start operating from truth. And truth doesn't shout. It stands still. That stillness becomes intimidating to those who rely on chaos. Notice how predators behave. They test reactions. They probe for weakness. When none appears, they lose interest. Calm people are boring to manipulators. They move on to easier targets. This isn't about becoming feared, it's about becoming uninteresting to those who seek control. Peace follows naturally. Your life becomes quieter. Not empty, focused. Less noise. More direction. You stop bleeding energy into pointless defenses and invest it into purpose instead. That shift alone changes your trajectory. Power doesn't announce itself, it accumulates. Each time you refuse to explain, you reinforce self-trust. Each time you stay calm under pressure, you strengthen inner authority. Over time, this compounds. People begin to treat you differently. Conversations change. Boundaries are respected without being spoken. That's real influence. Not force. Not volume. Presence. And presence is built by consistency, not moments of bravado. Quiet dominance outlasts loud confidence every time. Remember this, not every misunderstanding needs correction. Not every accusation deserves response. Not every opinion requires engagement. Choose scarcity with your words. Let silence do the heavy lifting. When you speak, speak from alignment, not defense. The moment you stop needing to be understood, you start being respected. That's the trade most people never make. But once you do, there's no going back. The calm is addictive. The control is subtle. And the strength is unmistakable. If something in you recognizes this truth, trust that instinct. It's the part of you that's tired of performing, explaining, shrinking. You're not meant to live as prey in conversations designed to provoke you. Step into stillness. Guard your frame. Let silence become strategy. The world will test you, let it. Don't react. Observe. And when you finally move, move deliberately. That's how sovereigns operate. Quietly. Decisively. Untouchably.